and Zach are experts in KM. So
yes,
we have prepared just a short presentation to show you how the entire process would ideally look like. Then
yes,
you can feel free to answer questions in between if you have any, but it should not take more than 20 minutes, the presentation. Then,
yes,
then we can also hear from you exactly what maybe you want to achieve after the or during and after the entire process. Then we can always pick the conversation from there. But
yeah.
Zach will be leading this particular session.
Mm.
So Zach,
Okay.
a quick introduction. Catherine is the HR manager for BTL. And Mercy as well. She works closely with Catherine. Both are in the HR function. So from my team, it's Zach and Gladys.
All right, so welcome, Zach. Good to know you. We've worked with Purity quite a bit. She was actually leading us in some trainings. So yeah, she's gotten to know the organization that we work for, that is Bible Translation and Literacy. BTL, we are Bible translators, as our name suggests. And we work among small marginalized communities in the country whose languages are not yet written. So we begin by writing their language and then use the written language now that we have developed to do Bible translation, and also use the same to write materials which are even used by the Ministry of Education to do mother tongue education. So we have a part of us that does mother tongue education. We also do adult literacy to help the adults be able to read. So we have classes among the communities and we work very closely with them. So yeah, basically that is really, in a big picture, that is what we do. Yeah.
Thanks, Catherine. As I see the way you just said, education is really important to you guys and how you translate. So for me, I've been high landed into knowledge management. I've been in the field of data and business intelligence. I've worked for the NGO industry for over 11 years. Currently, I'm attached to a UN agency that deals with migration. And I'm really passionate about knowledge management. And this is the best time to dive into knowledge management, because it's something, it's a buzzword to some people, but it's something that for the last 20 years, organizations like the World Bank have been really pushing for it. Gladys has joined us, and Gladys is a very well-recognized name in the knowledge management field, especially in Africa, and globally. She chairs in some journal boards, and it was good for her to make time to join us, and she might be able to say one or two things as we proceed with the presentation in regards to knowledge management. So once again, ladies, thanks for the opportunity, and Preeti, maybe you can give the go-ahead to start with the presentation.
Yeah, sure. Let's just start and see. We have about 50 minutes to be out of here.
Okay. So let me share my screen, and
okay.
Preeti, you can give me a shout out if you can see the screen on your side.
Yes, just make it the presenter view.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So yes. So good afternoon, ladies. Feel privileged to be the only gentleman on this call. And first, Catherine, I'll just I like the introduction that you gave, and you really explain what BTL does. But in just like two or three seconds, I'd really want to know what is your expectation in terms of knowledge management, and what is the need from the BTL side that you feel like you need knowledge management in the organization.
Okay. Yes, that is okay. Let me try and frame it. Now, our work is very unique. It's well cut out. It's not something you find in the market. It's not, there are times I want to even design job descriptions, and there is no generic. There is no generic job description for a Bible translator, you know? So the kind of work that we do is so unique that we don't want to always reinvent the wheel, that when we have new people, of course, we are very big on training because nobody graduates from a university being a Bible translator, you know? We have to, yes, we pick them with the very basic skills and then train them. Now, the unfortunate thing is, as we've said, we work among very minority communities. Some of these communities, they have very few people who have made it to the university. So when we have trained them and they are of a higher caliber, their attrition rate is also something. You know, the county government, especially from the time of devolution, the county government picks them because these are hot cakes in the community. But you see, they go with the knowledge that they had received. So you always have to go back, recruit again, train, hoping they can stay. And you may not really have that laxity, apart from people who feel they really have a calling to serve the community, that they can commit the time. So you realize then you have to harness knowledge to make it easy for transition. And not just for translators, but all other sections, we feel that sometimes you lose very key people. And when you try to recollect, you realize this person was doing so much, and that knowledge you have lost is so much that by the time you raise people to the caliber that the work was before they left, it takes so long. That is why we see we really need to do the knowledge management.
All right.
That is perfect, and I think that is a very good segue to us having this presentation. And I'll speak on a few of the things that even as the organization can start with implementing. And maybe Gladys will also mention there's something that we've really benefited from using knowledge management in mitigating what you call knowledge risk, what you just mentioned. So I can just go ahead and start the presentation. And the agenda or the takeaway, we're just going to take you through what is knowledge. And we're going to talk about the knowledge management essentials, just to build up on what knowledge is, then touch on the benefits of knowledge, which you can relate to your organization. And then I'm going to talk about KM in practice, just to show you that if we implement knowledge management, what will be the practical and the direct link towards what the organization holds and what it can continue holding, even if there's a risk of losing staff, or there's emergencies like we have COVID. So you might have staff leaving or staff unfortunately just passing on. So we make sure that the structure of the organization is not affected. Then now we're going to talk about the next step and the feedback from the attendees. And at any point, feel free to tell me to repeat something, because I'll try to move fast so that we finish within the designated time. So let me just define to you what knowledge is, because a lot of people, when you talk about knowledge, they might define it as what they've known instinctively through their experiences, but there's a definite explanation of knowledge that relates to the organization. So knowledge is an understanding of information about a subject, and this is gained through experience or study. And when you look at the word knowledge, it is broken down into 3 types of knowledge that helps you understand how it is applied in the day-to-day application. So the first one is the type of knowledge can be explicit. So explicit knowledge just means knowledge that is documented and is well elaborated in books or journals. And I mean, in relation to what you do, look at the Bible. So the Bible is a knowledge resource that is well documented, and it is an easy way of explaining stories or occurrences or lessons, and it can be trained, it can be articulated, it can be captured, and it can be translated, which is what you guys do. So when you come to explicit knowledge, it is very easy to explain, Once you train someone, they have the documentation, they can refer to it in that perspective. But now the second type of knowledge, which is equally important, but very hard to transfer or to share, and the name is called tacit knowledge. So another word for tacit knowledge is understood information. So this is knowledge that you gain from your personal experiences, and it is more difficult to express because this type of knowledge is also dependent on you as an individual. It's more like personalized knowledge. So like, for example, when you look at Jesus had a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills. You see things like the way he performed miracles. That is tacit knowledge that only Jesus and other special human beings, or what people refer to as deities, usually have that kind of knowledge. It is inward, it is personalized, it comes with something like a technique on how you do it. It's very hard to explain how they're doing. Someone expresses this kind of knowledge, but it is equally important even in our organizations. So in relation to your organization, let me give into perspective. There could be a team that know how to translate and how to train people in such a way that the knowledge they have is easily understood. So that's an example of tacit knowledge. Then we have implicit knowledge. So implicit knowledge is simply knowledge that is applied. So an example is when you look at a surgeon will go to school and will study medicine and a specific branch of medicine, and will be able to apply that knowledge. So people like you and me, we might not be able to apply the knowledge that a surgeon has acquired in a study, or even a pilot. So those are the three different types of knowledge. And as we go along in the presentation, you'll understand why it was broken down into those three levels. So now we know what knowledge is. But now the next big thing is, how do you manage this knowledge? And that is what all organizations are striving to do. So in the definition of knowledge management, this is a process of creating, storing, using, and sharing the knowledge and information an organization has to achieve its objectives. So there has to be a link between, if the organization has the knowledge, how is it creating more knowledge? How is it storing this knowledge that it can be accessed by a large number of people? How is that knowledge being used? Because you might have a lot of knowledge, but you're not utilizing it. Then knowledge sharing, how making sure that all the people in the organization share this knowledge. And the ultimate goal is this knowledge should be helping the organization to achieve its objectives. So if your objective is to translate the Bible to this number of communities, then the knowledge that you have should help you to do that in the most efficient way. And when you look at now examples on how knowledge management is made about, I'll just talk about 5 very quickly. There are plenty more, but I'll just talk about 5, which is really relatable to any organization. So the first one is what we call enterprise content management. So this, in a simple term, is how is the information in the organization stored and made available? Is it easily utilized in the day-to-day running of the organization? Someone from HR and someone from procurement, or someone from operations, are they able to work with the information organization together? That is what enterprise content management is. It's all about the information within the organization in a simple format. Then we have e-learning. So when you talk about e-learning, these are platforms that enable knowledge acquisition. So when it reaches a point where, especially now that we're in the COVID period, e-learning is very important because the organization can still continue doing training, can still continue empowering people who are going to translate the Bible without them being physically in one location. Then we have communities or special interest groups. So this is when common interest groups come together and create a collaborative space where a domain, which is like a specific, like for example, your domain will be the Bible and how you translate the Bible. So when you have special interest groups coming together and collaborating in such a way that they create and they share knowledge and they build on the knowledge they have. This is popularly known as communities of practice. Collaborative systems or portals where you can have knowledge from the organization accessed. And this could be best practices, which are easily retrievable by the people who have access to, and which is the resource of the organization, and the most important resource being the people, the staff. Then storytelling sessions. And I think storytelling can also be a way of you guys working with your goal of translating the Bible and, sharing the different collaborative goals of reaching out to all those communities that would need to access the word. So the next, I'm going to talk about the components of knowledge management. KM is knowledge management. So in any organization, the three important components of knowledge management. So when you say about components, means that if you don't have these three components, you cannot have a successful knowledge management. So the first one is the people. This is the human resource that we have in the organization. And the human resource are the people who create that knowledge. And that is known for every organization. The most important people are the people who come up with the knowledge, share the experiences, and have all the nitty-gritties on how to achieve all these goals. Then the second one is processes. So these are the steps involved in performing a task systematically. If you don't have processes that guide how knowledge is applied or how knowledge interconnects with all the other activities in the organization, then you'd have a failure in your knowledge management. Then the third is technology. Technology is just a tool that will help you to manage processes and people in an efficient way. Like the tool we're using today, Zoom, is helping us understand knowledge management in a setting that we are not in the same place. And a lot of people, what I'd like to say about components of knowledge management is a lot of people would put more emphasis on technology and these other tools. So the idea is you have to build an ecosystem where the three components work together for you to have a successful knowledge management. So now I'm going to talk about the tools, the knowledge management tools that we have within the organization. And when you talk about tools, these are things that are supposed to help you to have a successful knowledge management system or practice or culture. So I'm going to highlight 4 that are very integral when you want to do knowledge management. So the first one is communities of practice. And each of these tools has a specific way of doing it, has the technology that supports it, has the processes, has strategies on how you do it. So communities of practice, the way it just sounds is when you have a group of people who have the same interest, they come together and collaborate in an effort of knowledge sharing, knowledge creation, and bringing other partners that will help them in their goal. So communities of practice is, to me, the #1 tool that all organizations can use, and it'll be able to solve some of the challenges of knowledge retention when you're at risk of losing staff, as one of the things that you had mentioned, that Catherine had mentioned in the beginning. So another tool is what we call a knowledge cafe. So knowledge cafe is, let me just paint a picture of knowledge cafe to you. When, for example, you have you want to achieve an objective that maybe is very necessary to the organization in terms of you've identified that this is a need or a risk in terms of if we don't have this in organization, then we are going to fail in 1 or 2 or 3 things. So knowledge cafe is when a group of people come together in an informal way and go on a round table discussing ideas. Like, for example, we want to make sure that we reach the literacy level of a certain percentage in Bible translation. Then a knowledge cafe would help us, where we come together, we discuss the issue of Bible literacy for all these communities. Then we go through brainstorming sessions in a very informal but exciting way, where we open our minds that no wrong way or no wrong suggestion is judged. So what that does is, when you pull together, you have knowledge management environment where everyone shares the ideas, and you come in a collaborative way, and you come up with a big idea through an informal set. Then another tool is what we call AAR, and this is what we call after action reviews. A very simple example is, if something happens in the organization, a mistake that will cost the organization money or reputation, what's the first thing that the organization does? If an organization does not understand knowledge management, it is common practice that the staff member who was responsible for that error would be pointed finger, would be reported to HR, would be get into trouble. What that does is it is detrimental to the organizational growth. After action reviews gives a systematic way of handling mishaps, or you can even have, like, for example, mitigating goals within the organization, where when something happens, or there's a possibility of something happens, then a group of people that have been maybe nominated by the rest of the colleagues to look at that particular issue. And there's a standard way of them looking at that. They look at, what happened, how did it happen, and how can we put in structures to ensure that it does not happen again. And in that process, you find very concrete best practice or strategies or standards of procedure that are created. And these are stored in such a way that there's a reference. So, for example, if there's a certain way you're supposed to do things, the after action reviews will guide each and every person in the organization on how to prevent bad things from happening. Then the last one is mentorship program. So a lot of organizations are familiar with mentorship program, but there's a structured way of how you're supposed to do the mentorship program that is very effective and does not make one person feel like they're losing knowledge, because knowledge shared is not lost. And one of the organizations that I'm familiar with their mentorship program is Kenya Revenue Authority, where when someone is about to retire, about 3 or 4 years prior to retirement, they attach it to someone who's new, and they form a partnership of knowledge sharing. So that's one. Those are the 4 tools that I think are very helpful when it comes to knowledge management. So here, I'm going to quickly talk about the benefits of knowledge management. And this is anchored on what is the goal of the organization, not just for the next year or 3 or 4 years, but for the next 5 to 10 years. And KM is supposed to direct that. So one of the benefits is efficiency. And the key word here that I want you to remember, efficiency, is organic. Is organization working in an organic way? Like if there's something that I do and the work goes to my colleague, is the connection between us very efficient? Is it very smooth? So knowledge management creates an environment where transfer of knowledge, transfer of processes is so smooth that the organization is so organic in the true sense of the word. So the second one is innovation. So how KM or knowledge management helps innovation is something called organizational learning. So organizational learning is when you create an environment within the organization where there is that need or feeling or culture of continuously learning. And when you focus on creating, like the HR or the top management, make sure that the organization has that environment, which you call organizational learning, then the rest of the staff or the teams create what we call a learning organization, where everyone is participating in continuous learning. and continuously creating new knowledge and continuously growing in their field. So what this does is makes the organization unique in terms of the products they offer and the solutions they provide. Another thing is knowledge transfer. And again, this goes hand in hand with efficiency in terms of when there's constant and smooth knowledge transfer, then it's a true definition of a team. And I think a lot of people would are familiar with, sometimes you find that you may have an organization where they don't have a culture of transferring knowledge, because I feel like if I'm the holder of the most knowledge, then I am more indispensable when something happens. But if you have a well knowledge management centric organization, then continuously transfer of knowledge is the culture and it is common practice. And you have now the true definition of team. Together, everyone. What's the Purity? What's the acronym of team? Together everyone achieves more.
Yes, achieves more. Yes.
Achieves more. Yes, yes. That is enhanced with KM. So number 4 is it should be employee satisfaction and also employer, because when you talk about, if an organization, you have KM, there's continuous learning, there's a sense of belonging. Your ideas are not shunned, especially if you're holding things like knowledge cafes, then you feel a sense of purpose. I belong. I'm able to participate. I'm able to contribute. And even if I feel like my voice is very timid, I always get a chance to be heard. And that's the idea of purpose. And this will also bring, like brand loyalty and increasing the brand equity. And the last one I'll talk about is knowledge retention. And this is something that I think every organization at some point would have to be worried about it. How is the knowledge that we have going to be maintained within the organization so that we don't feel exposed if anything happens? So this is the key word here is continuity. How is our organization going to fare if we lose top management or if we lose the key people? Do we have structures in place that the car is going without, if one tire has a puncture, there is mitigation for that. So I want to put KM in perspective. And the best way to put KM in perspective is to give examples of how KM works in organizations that relate to us in the day-to-day. So in the top column here, or the top part of the bottom slide, is the success. Sorry. So when you talk about companies that have successfully implemented knowledge management, the first company that comes to mind is Safaricom. Safaricom is the most innovative organization in Kenya. It is not by chance, it is by design. They have an innovative team, they have innovative sessions, they have structures in place that encourage the use the information within the organization to help them come up with the best products and ways of making the customer first. And the second company that really has put a lot of investment in knowledge management is Kengen. And Kengen is one of the most transformative, and they have a very good mentorship program. They have an innovation platform where anyone from within the organization can come up with an idea, and when that idea helps the organization achieve its objectives, then that person gets recognition, not just locally but globally, that they came up with this idea and this is how transformative it was. And when you look at the global perspective, there's a company called 3M, and this organization is in the US, and some of the products that you use today, you might not know they come from 3M. 3M have a culture of innovation and knowledge sharing. When you talk about sticky notes or post notes, they are made by 3M. when you talk about scoring, what do you call it? Scotch Brite, the one for cleaning your sufuria. This was made by 3M. So, and when you look at their culture is, even when you look at their organizational strategy, their organizational strategy is the most unique. They say that 60% of the profits from the company has to come from an innovation not less than 3 years old. And that has made them the most innovative company for the last, I think, 4 decades. And when there's KM doing well, of course, you'll also have companies that have failed in KM. And when you fail in KM, the effects are disastrous. First company is Tuskys. So what Tuskys have failed in terms of KM is failure in succession planning and having a comprehensive KM system. I mean, if they did this, then they would not have the challenges that they have now, going from 67 branches to, I think, 5, as I last checked. Then another one is Oxfam International. Anyone in the NGO world, I think globally know what happened to Oxfam in terms of they had a big scandal with their staff members, you know, abusing their clients, or the most valued asset, which is the community that they serve. And this was just because of a lack of best practice and failure of something I call system thinking. System thinking is when the organization has a team culture. I check on you, you check on me. We ensure that the organizational policies are maintained. Then the last one is IBM. They had a lack of dynamic innovation strategy, which is anchored on KM, and they could not keep up with the market landscape. And today you'll hear Apple, you'll hear Microsoft, you'll hear Google, but you won't hear IBM. They're really struggling because they failed to achieve that. So when it comes to KM, where do you start? So when it comes to KM,
just a quick one. Maybe you have like 5 minutes.
Oh, yes.
So that we can get the question.
Sorry, I'm going. Okay. Yes. If there's any question, ladies, please feel free to stop me. We'll have at the end, we'll have a session for feedback and questions. So, but at any point, if you have a question in regards to any of the sections that I'm discussing, feel free to type in chat, raise your hand, interrupt as we go. Okay, so Beauty, is the chat okay? Can I go ahead?
Yes, the chat is okay. I was just telling you, maybe we have another, maybe like 5 minutes for the presentation so that we can cover other things.
Okay. Oh, okay. So where do you start with the KM? So the first thing is to do a knowledge management audit. So a knowledge management audit is just to take stock of the knowledge you have in your organization, so that you know, a guy called Peter Drucker talked about what cannot be measured cannot be improved. So you look at what is the stock of knowledge within the different departments. You do a layout, you do a mapping of this is the knowledge that we have. If we lose this, this is how it will affect the organization. Then after that, you create a knowledge management goal or goals, and they should be specific and measurable. And all of us know how to do specific and measurable goals. Then the next thing is to align your KM objectives to your corporate objectives. And aligning it is just that ensuring that you use KM to achieve your company goals. And after you do that first thing of knowing the knowledge layout, then the next step is developing a knowledge management strategy, which is just a comparative KM guide that is aligned to the vision, mission, and objectives of the organization, as I mentioned. Then the other thing is you start to create and store the knowledge and use the tools that are available for you to create more knowledge and to store the knowledge, so that this knowledge you can have like a bank of knowledge for you to be able to use it. Then after that is just to practice, apply, share, create more knowledge, and repeating the cycle. So it is just continuous application of the knowledge that you have, so that you don't have a bank of knowledge, but you're not using it. Then there will not be a need for you even to do knowledge management if you have the knowledge created, but you're not sharing, using it. So that is the end of my short presentation. And I hope you're able to just to understand the basics of knowledge management. Of course, we're not able to cover deep intricacies of knowledge management, going to knowledge management system, which is creating a system that now ensures the organization is able to harvest and store and use this knowledge, and also the different frameworks that the organization can use to work on the knowledge. And now I take it back to Purity to, in case there are any questions, feedback, and any discussions that you think, anything I can clarify, or any questions that you think might arise. Thanks, Purity. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you, Zach. I think that was very informative, and especially hearing it from an expert. So I think I'll just bounce it back to Catherine. Do you think, based on the presentation, we've been able to, one, address maybe what you had in mind? Is this something that now, having come to see it, like even the steps involved, what do you think? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, one, thank you so much, Zaki, for that presentation. It's very insightful and yeah, quite informative. I like the structure you've taken just to help us have proper clarity. Because I think what we know most really is the knowledge storage is what we think is knowledge management.
Knowledge management, yeah.
Yes, you know, the knowledge retention is like that has been our focus. How do we retain knowledge? But we realize then there are many other aspects of it, even just having employee satisfaction. To me, I think that is what got my attention, that actually, that when you have employee satisfaction, it's very easy for people to share knowledge and not withhold. You know, and even without you knowing, you're already creating knowledge management, because people will be happy to help each other share knowledge that they have. Yeah, so I think I like your perspective, and also the challenge, you know, like being an innovative team. Safaricom has succeeded because of innovation. And even that 3M that I didn't even know, I know that they have a goal to earn 60% from innovation. I mean, that is a drastic approach. So yeah, I do appreciate what you have shared with us. Now, what I'm wondering is now, yes, you have told us where do we begin. So we begin from an audit. My question is, so would you then work with the organization? Because when you tell me audit your knowledge, would I know exactly what am I looking for when I'm doing the audit? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, if that was a question, yes. When it talks about knowledge audit, there's a way to do knowledge audit that is useful. So when I say useful, is you look at where organizations struggle is people have the TOR, or the job description, but are they aligned to two things? The first thing is, are they aligned to the organizational goals? Not just doing every day. Are the job descriptions aligned to the organizational goals? Then the second thing is, is the TOR benchmarked with international standards? And when you have those two, it only makes sense now to do the audit and say, okay, this is how we're doing it. But when you look at this particular staff member, for us to help him level up or achieve the goals, then these are the skills that he needs. This is the knowledge that he needs. Then you look at the most experienced person, what is the tacit knowledge that he has? There are ways of capturing tacit knowledge. You can capture it through videos, through storytelling. So once you say this person has these skills and they are updated and they are competitive and we might lose it if he leaves, how do we make sure that all these other people have that knowledge or access to that knowledge? Yes, so that's how you do the knowledge audits.
I think
so. It will be working with you and doing that. Yeah.
All right, I think
go
you
ahead,
answered
Pretty.
that. I was just saying the biggest bit of the project will be consultancy. Like you'll have to work line in line with a consultant just to be able to, for example, with knowledge audit, I know you'll have to fill some forms, you know, just like assessments, just to find out. And you see, these assessments are developed by the consultant. So it's a very guided process until now we say we have a system working around us, or for us now for knowledge management, before we now leave you to continue for continuous management, you know. But just setting up the whole system, we'll have to work alongside a consultant.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to know, because, you know, like if we were to just meet and we are given this information, now we know. So where do we begin? But I think when you have somebody to work with you, keep checking whether you've actually understood, are you on on track? And finally, we can even have and say, this is the far we are. We actually have a knowledge management system in place. And from there now, we can move on, and maybe a year later, check again to see how are you guys managing. Have you, you know, continued to improve on your knowledge management, you know? Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have any other question or anything that is not clear? Hi, Mercy. Hi, Catherine. You can hear me?
Hi. Yes, I can.
All right. So anything else that was not very clear?
I think for me it's clear, unless Mercy.
It's also clear for me. Thank you, Zaki. You really taken us through well. We appreciate that. But just wondering, does it have like a time frame or a time duration? Like how long will it take?
Will this whole process take?
Yes.
Okay, so when it comes to the length, if I can go back, when you look at where to start and the next steps, this depends on two things. Because the first thing will be awareness, like an awareness training for top level management and Catherine as HR, because one thing you need is buy-in from the top management, because there'll be resources involved in terms of money and the time invested in the knowledge management process. And you see on our side is it's a continuous feedback loop where, like, for example, if it's a KM audit, this is what you need from you. The size of the organization, the size of the teams will determine how long the audit will take. And also developing the goals. How efficient in terms of giving the feedback is the organization. And this also comes with the management buy-in, investing time for the staff members who will be part of the technical team guiding the KEM. So it takes short and long time depending on how the process starts. But the first thing is the buy-in and an awareness. Then from there now, we come up with the goals, short-term, long-term, and we say we want to achieve this in this time period. And we make it very specific in terms of if we're doing something within a month, then we set the timelines and we create a work plan that is realistic.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope
I think
that
it
answers
is
your
safe
question.
to say
Yes.
between 4 to 6 weeks, right, Zach?
Well, the bigger portion of the work really comes in developing the strategy. So it would go to as long as 3 months. Again, depending on how busy the organization is, and you know, how committed putting the resources to actually putting the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give it about maybe 3 months.
I'm seeing Gladys there saying that it can take up to 4.
Around
the
4
first
months.
stage. The first stage. Eh?
Yeah.
What do you mean by first stage? Is it the audit?
Hi everyone. Sorry, yeah.
Hi.
You know, when you're studying, the first thing about the game, like you have to assess the entire organization in terms of the systems, the people. So looking at 3 months might be less, because based on various game consultancies that we have done in various organizations, even including IOM, it goes for around 4 months. And also for organization, yeah, it took us around, we were working with a game consultant from UK. It took us like 6 months here. Because our organization is so big, you know, including all the 14 countries across Africa and the 3 partner countries. So yeah.
So I think it's dependent on the size of that of your organization, but I don't think your organization is very big, Catherine.
It's not too big, but also it is diverse.
Okay.
Diverse, because it's not only one line of knowledge that would want to manage. It is different roles. The biggest, of course, is now the Bible translation aspect of it. But we even have a conference facility. You know, how do we ensure? Yeah. So it's as diverse. We have a business arm again. So it's the diversity is what might take a bit of time. But I think it is good for planning to know that let's commit, let's say 4 months or 6 months to achieve this goal.
Yeah.
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 Okay, then I think the final one, which I don't know whether we'll discuss in this forum or later, I know our time is almost, is now the cost implication, not in terms of time, now we know the time, but in terms of PESA, the money factor now. Yes, also that is part of the resource for to know what would it cost for us to have this project complete.
That one we had actually earlier discussed internally, but we felt one, we don't really know the intensity of the work. So we might maybe just have to do like an initial assessment. That's what we were thinking, just to find out like how much work is there, how involving it is. But ideally it will be anything around 200,000 and 300,000. Yes. So, but I think if given an opportunity to do the initial assessment, you remember there's a time I had sent you an email with some information. That we requested, like the number of employees, or that. So if we're able to get that initial data, then we are able to give you an exact quotation.
All right.
Yeah.
No, that is in order. I think you can. It is. You can.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Let me. Sorry. Mercy.
Yeah, and I was saying that at least to have an idea, even if it's a rough idea, so that you know whether is this something you can accomplish in this quarter or in this year, or you have to plan it for later. So that is very useful information for us, at least for planning purposes. Yeah. So and maybe now that the next question is then from here, what next? Maybe we will work now with Purity to know how then do we proceed from here? What to,
So ideally the next steps would look like first getting the go-ahead from you. Also giving us the actual data so that you can give you a formal quotation, which now you are able to commit to. So, and once we from there, now Zach and the team comes down on the ground. But the very first step will be an initial like awareness, as I had earlier mentioned to you. Almost we'll call it awareness, but it's like a training, just to bring the whole team up to speed of what we are doing, you know. Then from there, then we go to the KM audit. All these other steps follows with the committee. Very specific group of people who will handle the entire process. So from here, it can start as soon as you want, or as later as you want. But now, once we understand, once we are clear on the timelines and the cost, and it's agreeable to both parties, then I think that's a good place to start.
We can begin. All right. I think then we can take that conversation offline from here.
Yes.
I'm seeing our time is up. But yes, thank you very much. Really, I think this has been very helpful for us, even good information for decision making. I think from here now, when I share this information with our management team, at least we have clarity on the direction we want to take. Yeah, so I think we will pick it up with Purity from here.
Sawa. I'll share the presentation just in case you need to use it internally.
Please do together with the recordings.
Sawa. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Blessings.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the other things.
We will.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Asanteni sana. Okay. So we just leave.
Everyone.
We just leave.
Yeah, we'll have to leave.
We